Welcome, welcome. My name is Edna White. I am your host for Keeping It Real on Purpose. And today I am totally excited. But, audience, you know I'm always excited about my guests. But this guest, I'm particularly excited about because it's a topic that I wanted to talk about for a long time. And I know you all have been asking me, but I'm going to introduce him and his name and what he does. He's going to tell you what he does, but his name is Daniel Kelty. He is going to be talking to us today about how organized religion affects us mentally, our mental health.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I am so, like I told you pre-show, I'm really
Yeah.
excited to have to be here with you. So tell us how you show up in the world.
Well, I am a licensed psychotherapist. I'm an independently licensed social worker in the state of Ohio, with a
Okay.
supervision credential. And
Okay.
I operate my own private practice. It's a psychotherapy practice, where I provide natural healing. Thank you very much. Out of my home.
Great.
I love your question. How do you show up in the world? Because I wear different hats.
Oh,
Um,
that's great.
Yeah. Um, I have a husband of 15 years. We
Okay.
have three beautiful children we've adopted. So I'm a dad, I'm a therapist, I'm a lot of things.
Okay.
And I like to stay busy. So I also
That's
sit on the board of directors for a place called Camp Quest, which is a camp for children nationwide to
okay.
promote critical thinking and natural healing.
Oh, I love it. So I
Yeah.
don't think you wear a lot of hats. I think you have the skills. All those skills just work so
Hmm.
well together. You don't have many hats. You don't have them. You just work in it. You
Yeah.
just work in it. That's
That's
all. I love it.
that's interesting you say that because I always tell people, they say, what made you be a therapist or a social worker? And I said, not to be cliche, but I really do think it's in your blood. It
It's
is.
gotta be.
I,
It's gotta
once I learned what a therapist meant when I was little, I thought,
yeah.
my God, I've been doing this my whole life. This is just who I am. I could get paid for this. Are you serious?
Yes. I hope you're hearing that, audience. I hope you're hearing the fact because I know we talk about this all the time. Some of our social workers, we had a big summit last year. Well, this was past year, not last year.
Right.
And the women were like, I really wish I could get out on my own. Well, my sister did it because she was so tired. We live in New York. She was
Okay.
so tired of working in that industry because it was
Sure.
so hard for her to operate the way she needed to. And now I hear that you're doing it. So that encourages everyone. You're a social worker, get
Yeah.
out there and make your own. Show up in the world as a
Sure.
social worker, but do
Sure.
it for yourself. I
Hmm.
love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So now I want to get into what you have found out about organized and religion and how it affects us
Yeah.
mentally.
Um, I mean,
So that's what I want to get into.
personally, I've always had strong feelings about organized religion, in particular evangelical fundamental practices. Um,
Okay.
but as a professional, I also have
Mhm.
found it troubling and disturbing how a lot of the fundamental faith based belief systems really teach us to be shameful of ourselves. It promotes guilt and anxiety and for example, if you happen to identify within the LGBTQ community,
Right.
that book of Leviticus is a scary book, right? As is Revelations and all those
Oh my
things
God.
that teach us to hate parts of ourselves, to fear parts of
Yes.
ourselves,
Yes.
and it's highly problematic in my opinion.
It is.
I've canceled people for many many years, and many times if it's not a really fundamental situation you're
Yeah.
dealing with, you can back somebody out of a
Right.
negative thought. And what I mean
Right.
by that is, like, if someone says, well, I think I'm going to go to hell, or God hates me because
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm married to someone of a different race or some other rule within
Yeah.
their system. And I might back him out of that by saying, do you really think that a God who created the entire universe and is supposed to love and accept all of us unconditionally really cares about about this issue you're bringing up? Um, and many times that
So
can be
good.
like, wow, that's an interesting thought. But sometimes, on very rare occasions, they'll say, yeah, I'm going straight to hell because I had sex before I got married. And that's firmly what I believe.
Yeah.
And on those occasions, I just have to, my empathy, my heart breaks. I'm like, this person genuinely believes that they're going to
Yeah.
burn in hell for this very normal life circumstance.
Yeah.
And I find that
Absolutely.
troubling.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you that I was involved in religion from the age of 18 or 19 till about, oof, I was in there 29 years. All my kids were born. Okay.
Mhm.
I can tell you that it is the most sexist.
Yes.
It is the most diminishing to women. They diminish their bodies. They hate their bodies, hate who they are, hate how they look. Um, and it does not give you any confidence whatsoever.
No.
I know, excuse me, I know for truth what you're saying. Now, I want to back up and
Sure.
explain what fundamental is to our audience.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. When I say fundamentalism, I often use it synonymously with evangelical Christianity specifically. And what I mean by that is they're usually extremely conservative religions, and they have a lot of rules about what you can't do. And it's very, very harsh circumstances and harsh rules about basically participating in the natural world, and that in of itself being an evil thing.
Yes.
Things like women can't wear pants, they have to wear dresses, or they have to have their hair long. All those things that most people don't can see the fallacy in the logic, but for some cultures and some organized religions, they double down and they hold fast to it, and they have their own little bubbles that they exist in. And for a lot of people that, like I said, for example, in the LGBT community, or anyone really that doesn't identify in within that bubble, it's extraordinarily harmful. And even more problematic is it doesn't teach us how to have healthy relationships with people who believe and think differently than us.
Oh my. So I want to tell you one of the things. My daughter
Yeah.
is gay. And so I knew, we have discussed it and everything, but she loved to go to church.
Hmm.
They literally tried to pray that whatever was in her out. Like
I
literally.
Wow.
And I saw that she said to me, she goes, "Mom, what's the difference? I don't
Mm.
need to go to church. What's the difference? I'm going to hell anyway." And I'm like,
Oh,
when I heard that, it hurt my heart so bad. And
sure.
I had to say to myself, what have I done to my children?
Mm.
I had them going there because now I was abused, sexually abused from a young age, like 5 or 6 till
Hmm.
about 14. And so I thought this was a safe place because the person I met, I loved her. And she told me to go to counseling. So when she passed away in the ministry, I
Hmm.
didn't get that again. The next person was like more,
Yeah.
you know, like you said,
Sure.
double down on it.
Right.
So it was like we couldn't wear sandals. We couldn't wear a skirt that was above our knee or on our knee. We couldn't, if we were large breasted, we had to wear big shirts to cover that. It was like we were in shame most of the time.
Right.
Most of the
Right.
time. And being someone who had shame on already, you
Hmm.
know,
Sure.
now I got another coat of it, like you said, like another hat or whatever. But I had like it was covering me up. I was miserable. And it
Sure.
took me 29 years to kind of come out of it. So when I came out, and I'm glad you said that about the Bible,
Hmm.
I ripped the Bible apart. And it doesn't mean what we think it means.
Hmm.
When it says a lot of what it's saying, it's really we take it in context of literal their interpretation. But the words were not to be translated from from like Abrahamic law. It
Hmm.
wasn't translated correctly to English. It's not able to be translated to English.
Right.
So we got a bunch of somebody else's thoughts.
Mhm. And it's
you
so
know?
interesting how those thoughts translated into scriptures, translated
Yes.
into rules, and even more
Yes.
problematic, translated into law. That's where I have an issue.
Yes. And
Believe what you want to
it's
believe,
so
and if it
funny you said that.
inspires you and makes you feel good about yourself, then you do you.
Great.
Wonderful.
Yes. Yes.
But the minute that template gets applied to me and I'm seen as evil and not worthy of having children,
Yes.
not worthy of marrying, I got an
Yes.
issue with that.
Yeah.
So
And I would say the same thing to everyone. Well, why would the God that created this whole world, if he did,
sure.
would have an or again, and he created you, me, but then all of a sudden he didn't create that? I don't get it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think you talk about God and love, so but you're talking God and hate. That doesn't make any sense
Right.
to me. It didn't
It's
make any sense to me. It was
right.
very, very damaging to me. And I guess I know I could see you sitting in church, like, but doesn't make any sense because I used to do that too. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. And I would raise my hand like I was in school. But what does that mean?
Mhm.
You
And
know, and
I'm just curious, how were you received when you questioned that?
oh my gosh, let me just tell you, I was treated like, who are you to ask such a question?
Exactly.
And I remember the first time, I'll tell you, I was at a church one time, right? I know this is about you. I know this is about you.
No,
I got to get this.
you're fine. Go
But I
ahead.
was
I'm
in this
enjoying it.
church. I was in this church and I was speaking. And so I don't know what made me look at this man. I was looking at him
Right.
and I went over to him and I said to him, my spirit is telling you, stop doing what you do. And I just walked away from him. And I said it in his ear. I didn't say it aloud. I said it in
Right.
his ear. So he was standing there and he was standing there for a long time. So I said, and I'm saying, why did I shoot her? Because sometimes you say, but it was
Sure.
like I was drawn to him, right?
Mhm.
He gets up and he says to me, he stands up and he says, um, I really love this woman here. So I was like, it was the first time I ever met him in my life, right?
Right.
So he says, I really love, she told me something that only God knew, and she doesn't even know that he knew it. And he confessed that he was watching pornography. He was the pastor
Mhm.
of a church. So he
Right.
says, I got to get this fixed. I can't do this. This is not right. And I didn't know anything about the man ever. So, okay, so fast forward, I go back to church, or to my home church. And it was nice. The guy, he really kept in touch with me, and I told him, I said, I know resources to kind of help with that, that. And we stayed connected. Went
Right.
back to my church. Went back to my church, and I was sat down with all the council
Mhm.
to say, God doesn't talk to me. I was like, who the heck did? That's all I said. Well, who the heck did? I don't know this man from a hole in the wall, right? And I
Right.
said, I think it was kinetic. I think it was, we were meant to talk, and whatever it was, I didn't know what it was. He's the one that confessed it. Well, you don't have the right to call him out on. It's like, wait, what? I never called him out on
Hmm.
anything, you know? But there's no, I said, wow, to say to me that God doesn't talk to me, well, who the heck? So that means I'm really low on the totem pole, right?
Right.
Does that
Yeah.
mean that?
Yeah, absolutely. God loves you conditionally, under certain conditions.
Yeah.
Make
Under
that make
certain
sense.
conditions. So he doesn't talk to me, he doesn't direct me, doesn't guide me.
Right.
I have no common sense. I need you in front of me at all
Mhm.
times.
Right.
So that's when I knew something, I started to get to really, now I'm questioning,
Mhm.
now I'm going crazy. I'm questioning everything. You
Yeah.
know, um, just the fact of wearing earrings, I was questioning. I'm
Oh my
like,
goodness.
what? Yeah, it was so heavy. I
Right.
just immediately I stopped having my kids come. I said, no, I got to finish out my obligation because I was an obligation there. But I was like, this is not good. It's not good. It took me years, 10 years,
Mhm.
10 years to get all of, and I know what you're talking about, the mental health.
Right.
It was bad. I couldn't look at a guy in the eyes. Like if I did,
Mhm.
I was a harlot or
Sure.
Jezebel. One of
Sure.
them too. I was one
Yeah.
of them too.
And what you're talking about is deconstruction. You're deconstructing what you thought to be true. There's a
Yeah.
brilliant woman I follow on TikTok actually named
Yeah.
Rachel Kane. I love her
I think I may
content.
have
And
heard of her. Yeah.
she's a humanistic, secular human.
Yes.
And she
Yeah.
talks about how these two different kinds of morality that people fall into. Basically, there's a horizontal reality, which is
Okay.
my moral system means that if
Right.
I do harm to someone else around me,
Right.
that's against my moral code.
Right. Right.
Something that's you see in a lot of faith-based morality is a vertical top-down morality.
Yes.
Means everything that's good or right comes from up here. It comes from the top
Right.
down.
Right.
And if my morality that's faith-based tells me God says I should do this thing, even if it harms
Right.
someone close to me, that's okay
Right.
because my morality is vertical and not horizontal.
Right. And also in the religious order, if like say my son was is involved with the justice system, so when he went to jail, he I was told not to go see him and cut him off. Now here it is, he's 16. And I'm like, well, who else is going to see about him? Like,
Right.
I'm his mother, but to tell me that I was like, but I didn't listen to it. Needless to say, I didn't listen. I was
Good for
like,
you.
whatever you say, what you want to say about that
Right.
one. How I did what I wanted to do. But
Right.
I was like, who would, that doesn't sound like God. Like, doesn't sound like any of the stories, like the Good Samaritan picking up somebody, taking and paying their stay in the hotel. That doesn't sound
Mhm.
like that. It
Right.
doesn't sound like that at all. And I'm saying, wow,
And
doesn't
if you bring up a good point, because in your mind, you were saying, wait a minute, that's not my definition of my God. That's not how I
yeah,
understand love. And that
yes,
may be very true. I think, when I said my biggest issue was the fact that it's leaked into our legal system and has for
yes,
since the beginning. I mean, let's
yes,
not be
yes,
naive. That uh, very corrupt politicians get their position in Congress and in politics by using
yes,
buzzwords like faith, Christian,
yes,
Bible. Those are just buzzwords.
yeah.
And
Oh, I hate it.
if the masses can see
Yeah,
that and say, oh,
yeah,
this must be a good person, there's
yeah,
a very insidious assumption that
yeah.
in fact makes us good, and it doesn't.
It doesn't. I'm telling you, it doesn't. And then I had a car accident where I was in the hospital about 43 days, right? The whole
Oh,
side
wow.
of me was crushed on the side.
Hmm.
And so in my mind, okay, so I couldn't wear pants. I know I had to wear pants. I couldn't wear skirts. So I had cast all over here,
Hmm.
and it was a hot mess. I was just so I the first thing when I wake up from the coma, you guess what I'm thinking? Not that I'm alive, but guess what I'm thinking?
What you're
You'll
wearing?
never guess.
What?
Nope. Where's my Bible?
Wow.
What? I was
Right.
like, why am I thinking that? Like, here I am. I could see the cast. I couldn't talk because I was incubated, and I had two collapsed lungs. So I'm like, what? I'm thinking instead of looking at my body, being appreciative to be alive, I'm thinking
Right.
I need my Bible. They're not going to know that I am the chosen one or the evangelist if I don't have this Bible.
Right.
The second thing was my legs, they had to put a wedge in between my legs because my hips were broken. So both of them were
Oh my
broken. They had
goodness.
to, yeah. So they had to have my legs like this. So it was like, there's like, you have to get your daughter to bring you some jogging pants. Oh no. Oh no. I couldn't even believe myself. I was like, I'm thinking like that. But I say that about this accident. This accident dismantled every thought that I had with religion. Every thought. And it was the best
Hmm.
day of my life. Even though it was painful, it
Sure.
literally released me. I was able to see that some things weren't real. They were just made up. I
Construct.
wasn't
Sure.
doing that, you know? And
Yeah.
then why would I get into an accident if I'm the chosen? Why would I be in an accident?
Why would God allow that?
Why
Right.
would I be in a coma? Why would I be hurting like this?
Yeah.
I'm the chosen.
Right.
So it disqualified everything that I thought about, and that started me to dismantle all of that.
Mhm.
So
It's
tell me about faith. Can I take? Because I know you're saying this word because I want to know this, and I know you know the answer. This faith. Explain to me why is it being taken so far with people? Faith.
insofar as the faith being dysfunctional, you mean?
Yes.
I think historically we have kind of lost the ability to think critically. And
Mm.
you brought up the perfect example. When you challenged someone of authority in the church, you were really
Yeah,
met with resistance and met with a
yeah,
lot of excuses and a lot
yeah,
of doctrine that invalidated
yeah,
your existence and invalidated your
yeah.
feelings. And so someone might say, wow, so it's not mine to question God's will. I better just shut up and mind my business and sit in the pew and listen to the sermon.
Right.
Um, and I think if your faith serves you, like I said, good for
Yeah,
you, you do you. And if that faith that makes you feel so good causes you to do
right,
good things for others and
right,
be a good person as you define it, then wonderful. That is an
right,
example of good faith.
right, right.
But when I'm held to the same standards of someone else's faith, or they see me as evil or see me as unworthy,
Okay,
as their
okay,
faith tells them to,
right.
that's where it becomes problematic.
Is religion a faith? Is there really faith in religion?
I think if you have a religion that actually teaches love and
Okay,
you have faith in something good, something bigger than yourself, and that serves you,
right.
wonderful. I think that there can be faith
Okay,
in that.
okay,
But
okay.
I think for a lot of religions that had become a bit more cult-like and a bit more fundamental, that faith is simply a buzzword that is used to control people and keep them in fear.
Gotcha, gotcha,
And
gotcha.
you know what the
So
good
tell
news
us
is?
how. What?
I'm sorry,
What's
the
the
good
good news?
news
I don't
is
miss it.
the good news is you can teach empathy. People
Ooh,
that exist within a fundamental construct often
yeah.
lack empathy for people different than themselves because they've been taught that. You can unteach
Ooh,
you can unteach it.
ooh. That is so
Yeah.
good.
Because
And
the
as I think about it, it's true. That is
what
really
is
good.
empathy but the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person?
Right.
You can be taught that.
So wait. So where does saying that they're empaths come in at if you can be taught it?
I'm sorry.
If people say that they're empaths
Uh-huh.
and you could be taught empathy,
Hmm.
how are they empaths? I don't get it.
Yeah, I
See,
mean,
you're making me think of all
I'm
these
certainly
questions.
I'm certainly not an expert in the psychic abilities or being an empath per se, but I do
Yeah,
think the emotion of empathy is something that is
gotcha.
lacking. It's
Okay,
lacking
the
in
emotion of it. Okay,
right. It's lacking in people's ability to see people different from themselves as
okay,
equal or as worthy.
okay. So they may have an emotion, emotional connection that they can feel that. Is that
Right,
right? Or
exactly.
okay,
Exactly.
got you. Or more of a stronger connection. Got it. Okay.
It's like,
So
for example, if there's a like hateful legislation passed that says
right.
transgender people can't serve in the military, they are
Mm,
denied that right to serve their country because
right.
of how they identify and who they are.
Right.
And we say, yep, that's a good idea because we don't know any transgender people. It doesn't affect us personally, so we blindly
Right.
follow it. But
Right.
then if you know someone transgender, you're forced to look
Right.
at your own dogma and forced to look at your own belief, and you're like, wait a minute. And you might, and hopefully you'll develop some empathy because
That is
it
correct.
affects you personally.
Exactly. Exactly. I think when you're young, you don't think like that. You don't think like
Right.
that. But as you get older and you're placed in certain experiences and situations, you're like, wow, I didn't because I'm one to ask questions. I'll ask a question in a minute. Like,
Right.
tell me how this
Sure.
came about. I don't want to be like rude, but I really want to know. I honestly want to know. My mom calls me. She said, "You've been my why kid for since you were born. Everything was why this. Why did they do that? I was always very inquisitive because I wanted to know. I really
Sure.
wanted to know.
Hmm.
And getting to know people again is a skill, and it is really is a skill. And being so concerned and wanting to know, and I did want to
Hmm.
know. And just learning from my daughter and asking these questions. Because mom, you really really want to know. I was like, no, I want to know. I want to know. I
Good.
really want to know. Because I never thought it was an abomination. Because
Hmm.
I just thought it was just part of who they are. That's who I thought. I never had any. like a epiphany that oh, they're not supposed to be that way. I never had that. I never thought that, and it was never something that I adhered to.
Right.
When it was always spoke about, I've never adhered to that. That's not. I'd be like, no, that's not true.
Mhm.
So I was one of them people like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not taking that, and that's
Yeah.
not true.
And whether you believe in God or not, my question has always
Yeah,
been, what kind of God would hate somebody for loving someone?
right,
Makes
right,
zero
right,
sense to me.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I would say. Would you rather for them to be in a relationship with someone just because you say, and then it's all
Mhm.
everyone suffers? Is that what God wants?
Mhm.
Think about that. No,
And
does God
right.
really want that? You
And
know?
to zoom out for people like myself and like your daughter to have our rights voted on,
Yeah, by
and
somebody
our
else.
government, like our government decides if we have rights or
It's
not. Um,
crazy. It is
that is
crazy.
crazy.
It is crazy. So let talk about like the weight of religion on mental health that you come from as far as your dad or your clients. Talk about that because that needs
Yeah,
to be talked about.
sure. Well, personally, I think I mentioned in my pre-show email to you that I was working on a book.
Hmm.
And it's going to be called When the Bed Bugs Bite, and hopefully it'll be released
Love
in the
it.
next year.
Love
I
it.
did grow up in Ohio in a fairly fundamental, ooh, sorry, that oh, very fundamental
Mhm.
religion in the Southern Baptist Church. And
Okay.
so
Yes.
I
The
was,
Bible Belt.
oh my goodness, yes, hellfire, brimstone. Um,
Yes.
and my trauma within the Baptist church of just
Gotcha.
being taught to hate everything that's not like you.
Yeah.
And I remember asking my dad, early on, like, why can't I wear jeans to church? Why does God
Yeah.
care what I wear? Isn't my showing up enough? And
It's
asking those
true.
questions he had no answers to was a
Yeah.
big problem in our relationship. And the more I
Yeah.
got into the scripture, and I had read the Bible
Yeah.
cover to cover, and I
Right.
started to question things, I was stonewalled with things like, well,
Yeah.
ours is not to question why. It is just
Right.
God. We shouldn't question anything. So there was no it, asking those questions was not a welcomed thing.
No.
And we had a
Were you
lot.
called the black sheep? Were you called the black sheep?
Oh yes, yeah, very,
Yes.
very
I
much.
had that name too. I had the
Mhm.
name too.
My parents are extremely homophobic,
Right.
and I think the problem is, if we go back to when my dad first got into Christianity, he got into Christianity because my brother died when I was a toddler, and before my brother died, he was he gambled, he drank, he played poker, the whole stereotype. And then
Yeah.
when my baby brother died, he couldn't make sense of it, and he jumped into the
Right.
church because the
Right.
church answered his questions,
Yep.
and there was a reason for everything. And I
Yep.
don't, my personal opinion is I don't think he properly grieved the loss of my brother,
Right.
because he
Exactly.
just turned
Yep.
his mind off and
Right.
followed
And that's the place you can turn it off at. You can literally turn your
yeah.
mind is not your own there. You can literally turn your
Mhm.
mind off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And from that, I think ever since then, he's been terrified to question anything and has
Right.
just slipped into this really hateful dogma that I don't think he knows how to
Yeah.
back out of.
Yeah. And it's hard to back out of that. It's when I was going through that, there was so many times I was crying and I'm like, they duped us. Like this doesn't mean that. And
Yeah.
when I really studied the part where in I think it's in Leviticus as well, where the women should not go to war
Yes.
and wear the war clothes.
Right.
And I'm going, they told us that this was what God said that women needed to wear dresses and not pants. So I
Right.
said, well, if that's true, if it's really true, I'm going to go on the side of Jesus. Didn't he have like one of those long dresses on? So how did pants come when Leviticus was written?
Right.
Right?
Right. Right.
How did that happen? Yeah. So my my pastor looked at me and he said, a pound of this and a pound of that. That has nothing to do with because we were talking about Joyce Myers, and I was saying I'd studied Leviticus I mean, I broke it down, and I was like, even with the part, there's the part you talk about with the angel being given, instead of the young girls,
Right.
that didn't even mean that. And I was like, that didn't even had nothing to do with
Right.
homosexuals whatsoever. And when I'm saying all of this and I'm breaking it down, and he says to me, how do you know this? I said, I studied to show myself approved. A workman?
Right.
That's what I said to
Right.
him. I brought it back to him. That's what I studied this. And so he says, well, I'm going to go back to the women. They're not supposed to wear pants, anything that puts their two legs into, they you still have to step into. That's what he said. I said,
Right.
well, we should be wearing underwear or stockings. So he was like, now you're just doing it. Like he was so mad
Right.
at me. I had to stop it. I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna make this man have a heart attack.
Right.
Because it did, I said, you see what I'm not trying to make you
Mhm.
mad, but it doesn't make any sense
It doesn't
what
make
you're
any sense.
saying.
There are
No.
some scholars that actually interpret the book of Leviticus when it talks about a man laying with another man should be stoned,
Mhm.
interpreted as to be against pedophilia, that it was
That's what it's
translated.
about.
Right.
Yes.
And so if you look at that, and as alarming as
Yes.
that alone is, take that further and look at how the
Mhm.
Catholic Church handles their priests who molest children. Do they excommunicate them immediately? No. They move them to a different parish. They move them all over so the victim is not have access to them, but they can go victimize somebody else.
Somebody else.
And historically, that's how the Catholic Church has handled it.
Let me just tell you, I went to Italy. And that big church they have there. So, of course, I'm from New York. I got shorts on. I didn't know that you couldn't go into this church. You had to cover up. So I'm going up the stairs, and so everybody's looking at me. I'm like, so I had shorts on, I had
Right.
cut off jeans, and I had the shirt with like showed all of this, and I'm just like, okay, that's what I'm doing. So it was hot. It was really hot. I think we went in February, April. It was very hot there. And so I'm going in to the guard. He says, ma'am, you can't come in here like that. I was like, I have been bound for years. I am not about to put nothing over this body. And he was like, okay. He let me go in. And so when I'm going through the church. So I'm seeing these small people, small cherubim like people all over the place. Now they had a room where they had the women. If there was women scholars, they had their own room and they were locked in it. Then you had these eunuchs that were guarding them around. Like, so this is
Right.
one room, they're in this room, and they're kept with the eunuchs are castrated, and
Right.
they guard the women, okay? Because
Mm.
they had a purpose, some of them weird purpose. But throughout the place, there's these grown men,
Right.
and in my mind, I'm saying this is not doesn't look good.
Mm.
You got these small children, statues of small children,
Right.
dogs and snakes, and everybody's naked. Now this is the church, okay?
I hear you.
Everybody's naked,
Right.
okay? And I'm going, why are you guys crying? Because this looks like pedophilia to me. Like this is not. I didn't feel good with it. I was like, this is gross. So of course,
Yeah.
my big mouth says, what are those little closets for? Because they had these little closets, right? They
Right.
were size like an adult could fit in. I said, what are these closets
Sure.
for? When they told me that they go back there, the priests can go in there and they're by themselves or whatever. But when I went in there, there's this little section that's not here, like where your face is, but it's down low.
Right.
And I'm going, this is disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
just
it's
really
blatant.
disgusting. And I'm going, oh,
Sure.
this is it's right here in our faces. And when the people are crying, this is so beautiful. No, this house is a house. This is a den of
Yes.
disgusting things that are going on. So I say all that to say what you said is right. It's so right. I
Right.
had to learn that. It's so right. It's the truth. It's been going on for years and it continues. It really continues.
It does. And think about how much money the Catholic Church has. And if we were to tax all the churches, you could feed all the
Yeah.
homeless people in the entire world
Thank you. Thank
10
you.
times over.
10 times over. Everyone would be fed.
Yeah.
Everyone would have equal amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk about the mental anguish, I want to say, because it was mental anguish. I couldn't sleep
Sure.
because it was always bothering me. I was always thinking I was doing something. It was like walking a tightrope,
Right.
and there's no safety net on the bottom, and
Right.
you have to walk with such ease and focus, and you were tense. It was horrible. It was the
Mhm.
the worst 29 years that I've ever spent. I was not happy at any time. At
And not
any
only is
time,
there
I
no
was
safety net, but there's hell underneath it.
right. If I did that, that would be hell. So
Sure.
the mental anguish. How do you turn, for some of your clients? How do you help them, if you can,
Sure.
pivot some of that mental anguish that religion has really instilled in them?
Sure. And if someone is really attached to that faith system that they've been raised with and it makes sense
Hmm.
with their culture, I will ask them,
Right.
how do you find joy and happiness within the
Right.
context of your faith? And they
Okay.
might have logical answers, and we'll focus on that and how they define joy and they
Right.
define peace.
Right.
But some people that are just so tormented by this belief that they're a bad person, they're somehow an evil person,
Right.
cannot find joy, peace, or acceptance within their belief system. And when that
Right.
happens, I ask them, is there anything about this that you can
Right.
question, that you will allow yourself to question?
That's good.
Because it's not my job to do, really. My job is to
Yeah.
help support them and to
Right.
help, meet their
That's
clinical
good.
goals as they define them.
Yeah.
Um, but it's, one of the things that led me to get certified, which I'm currently working on, to be
Mhm.
a specialist in religious trauma, was just
I
that
love it.
paradigm. Just that
Yeah.
paradigm of like it's
Yeah.
truth to them. I see it as trauma,
Yeah.
but it's truth to them. And that's a very difficult thing to approach.
It was very hard for me, and one of the biggest things I had was about money, around money. That
Mm-hmm.
everything I did, I was not supposed to be paid for it. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't count it. If I had it, I would break out in hives, and I was freaking out. I would have issues about it, and if I worked, I had to give them, like, literally. I'm gonna tell you, I
Mm-hmm.
was giving money to the church where I should have been keeping it because I thought I wasn't supposed to have it. Because all the misconception, and the one that sticks out a lot is they never tell you about the commas in the Bible. So everything's got a period. Whenever they try to rule you and
Right.
control you, everything has a period.
Right.
So the love of money is the root of all evil. There's a comma, there's no period. And then the rest, there's more that goes along with that. Then
Right.
before that root of all evil, there's something above that. We never heard that part. The only part we said the
Right.
love of money is the root of all evil. So
Sure.
then, oh God, I don't want to be evil. Like, I don't want to be evil. I'm going to hell, you know, if I have
Well,
money.
then my question to the church is, if money is the root of all evil, then why do you want so much of it?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Then
That's
why do I
one
have
thing they
to
shouldn't say. Why are you even passing around the basket? What are
why do
you
I have to
passing the
tithe my
basket for?
10%?
Right. Why are you even talking about tithes and offering? Why is the root of evil, but you got it?
Mm-hmm.
What is that about? These are the questions I used to ask, but no matter what, like you said, it sinks. It gets in there.
Right.
Um, and then the other thing, I was married twice.
Mm-hmm.
So they said you would never be anything in church. You would never. First of all,
Ah.
you're a woman, number one. And number two, you're supposed to be married until you die, But I'm like, do you think God wants me to be in a relationship that I'm being abused? I'm coming to church wearing glasses, being abused,
Mm-hmm.
hurt, and not that I was, but still emotionally damaged.
Yeah.
You think God wants me to be like that?
Mm-hmm.
And to be in a marriage like that? I don't think so.
Right.
So that alone said to me that you'll never be anything. When I left the church, I decided to leave and have a conversation with them
Right.
and say, I'm leaving because there's something more that I need to do. You'll never be anything. That was the final word I heard. You'll never be anything. Never.
Wow. What a damaging statement.
It was horrible. And it made me vacillate every time I would try to, I was like, I got to go back because I'm never going to be anything. It's nothing going to ever work out. And I would vacillate. And
Oh
I
my
was
God.
troubled for months,
I'm sure.
crying, crying
Yeah.
all the time. I had a friend who actually left the church the same time as I did because
Mhm.
we're pretty close, but we didn't realize we were feeling the same things. We didn't
Right. And
know
see,
because we didn't
that's
talk about
why
it.
the conversations need to happen.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about it until I was crying, and she's, "What's the matter?" I was like, "This is what's going on." She goes, "Oh my god, I'm going through the same thing." And so we started
Oh,
talking, and that's when we. So she's like, "You got to come over and stay with me because I know that you're going through this." I was crying every day,
right.
and here's a man that said that he was my father and
Mm,
told me I'd never be anything. So yet again, traumatized, in my personal life.
right.
Now I'm traumatized in the church. And the church did more damage than I can I mean, food wise, I was they were had me fasting and I was sick all the time. It did so much damage to my body. I didn't know
Mm.
why. And and so my doctor's like, "What are you doing?" Because he thought I was bulimic. He's like, "Are
Oh my
you,
gosh.
he thought I was like, practicing
Mhm.
bulimia. I was like, no, they're telling me to fast 90 days without water or food. He said,
Mm,
what? So he's like, you have to have water. He's like, eh,
yes.
I'm not going to tell you to go against your religion. And I said, he said, you have to eat something. You're working all day with nothing in your stomach. Pretty soon you're going to pass out. And I
Yeah,
did.
of
I
course.
passed out. I passed out. So immediately that was not going to go over. Once I started getting sick, I was like, oh no, that we're not doing that
Right.
here. We're not doing that. But those are ways that control you. And
Right.
then after that we do the fast now, why did we do this and what did we change? What did we change as a group of people? Like if we're fasting, what are we
Right.
changing? Who are we changing it for? There was
Mhm.
no answer, right? There was no answer.
Right.
I don't know how I rectified it. I honestly don't know. I just kept everything that I heard in my voice, my head, it wasn't my voice, but in my head, I said, no, is it true? I started saying, is
Right.
it true or is it something that I heard? And if it's something I heard, then I need to be able to go where I heard it from and quantify with something that's true. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
So that's the only way I did it. But there's so many people that are out there that you're so needed. Let me just tell you,
Thank you.
you're so needed.
Yeah.
There's not many people like me and my friend who kind of got away from it, and
Right.
like went cold turkey,
Sure.
went cold
Sure.
turkey.
I mean,
you know,
in some ways, it's
mhm,
when you experience trauma within the church, it can be a path to questioning it. But imagine the
right,
people who don't experience direct trauma but just choose to believe it, and they may never question it. And
aimlessly.
what you were describing just now, when you were talking about crying every day, is and feeling like you were less than, is because you were operating within the construct of a vertical morality.
Yes,
Because God said you should fast. The fact that it did harm to you did not matter because God
yeah,
said you should.
yeah, yeah. And I always asked, well, when is he going to tell me that I should be fasting?
Yeah, because I'm
Like,
hungry, right?
I know, yeah, because I want to eat. I want to eat.
Right.
And now think about this: having your children go through it. That's one thing I
Right.
didn't do, and I would
Mhm.
say, no, I may believe this, but you guys are kids. Y'all gotta eat. And I would fix them food, but I would never put them through that. And but I still didn't know. But like, even that example there, I should have said, "Wake up, Edna. You shouldn't be doing it either." But I
Right.
didn't. I didn't. Is that
Mhm.
part of the cult? Is that
I think,
mentality?
when people use the word cult, people are like, "Oh gosh, my church is not a cult. We believe in love." But look at the context in which your church functions, and look at
Yeah.
how you define cult. Does your
Ooh,
church encourage you to have relationships with people outside your faith system? No.
mhm.
Does your church encourage you
Oh,
to
that's
not
good.
partake in the world and not watch movies about Harry Potter and things that
That's really
you
good.
perceive as witchcraft?
That's really
It's
good.
okay to question that stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. So, what else? What else could we? What are some things that we could look out for in our own lives
Hmm.
with religion? As a young person, as a young
Sure.
person, maybe an older person, because I've met some older people that have not experienced religion and just starting. Because it's a group of people.
Yeah.
We want to be around a group of people. We go towards
Sure.
that. So, what could we look
Mhm.
at to prevent this from going on?
That's a great
Mental stuff.
question. Great
Yeah.
question, Edna. I think, and you point out one of the good things about the church community in that it is a societal, it's a community resource. It's where
Yeah.
people get to socialize and feel accepted and feel part of group,
Right.
and that feels good. That feels so good,
Yeah.
accepted
Yeah.
and told you're loved, and
Right.
that's why people go back to that. But when you are told that you're not loved and that you
Mm.
should suffer, you should feel bad
Right.
about yourself and feel bad
Right.
about someone else, that those are the red flags.
Okay.
So when
Okay.
you're taught and told that you should hate someone or not accept someone because they're different than you,
Yeah.
is a huge red flag.
Yeah. And where you sit, for me, because I was in the
Sure.
Pentecostal apostolic, women had to sit in certain seats, men sat up
Mm-mm.
top, you know, and that even is so very sexist.
Yeah. Oh
So
gosh.
very,
And if you were
so very.
in that Pentecostal faith, then better than I probably that women can't even pray in the presence of a man because
Nope.
they don't have that status in the church.
No.
So yeah, God
No.
loves you, but he doesn't want to hear from you.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier about that whole
Right.
story about me going to church. He doesn't
Sure.
speak to me. What it meant is you're a woman. He has
You're
to
not
speak to the
worthy.
head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worthy to hear or connect with another person. What
Mhm.
right do I have to say that I heard this? And I said I heard it. I
Sure.
didn't say it was from God or anything. I just said I heard it.
I heard it.
Something's
Yeah.
telling me that to tell you this. And I didn't say it out loud. I said it in his ear. And he just immediately cried. And he confessed himself. I didn't make him confess. I never said go confess to everybody. I never said that.
Sure.
But it's so very. I didn't realize how sexist it was. Like if I would have I wore the earrings. I told you, and
Right.
they were small.
Sure.
But I was interrogated. Whole meeting.
Wow.
What size you going to go up to? You can only go up with this size. Now, this is a male talking to me about being a woman, and I said, just succinctly, I said, no disrespect, but you don't know nothing about being a woman. You have
Good
no
for you.
idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to wear my earrings. And then when I wore the lipstick, oh God, I was going to catch cancer. I was going to die.
Right.
Oh my goodness. It was this whole ordeal, a whole big,
Hmm.
and I think I started wearing nails when nails first came out, the acrylic nails.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Right.
my God, I was going straight there
Yeah.
with flamed, with
Sure.
gasoline drawers on. I was going. I was out of there. I was
Yeah.
gone. And it's just so very. I just, I wanted to say, well, I said all that because I wanted people to know, audience, if it doesn't make you feel good, if somebody makes you feel uncomfortable about who you are and what you're wearing,
Right.
then it's time. It's not time to talk to them. And I mean it. Walk
Yeah.
right out
Absolutely.
the door. Just get
Mhm.
going. It's not the place for you. It's not. It's not. God is accepting of everyone. And maybe we should go back to no organized religions in churches, but go out in the fields and hang out in the fields and we can do some hiking, we can do all
Yeah.
that stuff. That's church to me.
Well,
That's church, being around people
yeah.
like that.
And I'll tell you, Edna, this is the perfect time for me to plug what I do. I'm going to be shameless here. So
Go ahead.
I got a certification in ecotherapy from
Okay.
the Earth Institute in Berkeley, California. And so when I do mental health sessions, many times I'll go outside on my 6-acre farm with my patients and
Oh,
we'll talk
that's
about
beautiful.
milking the goats or feeding the alpaca that we have and
Okay.
interacting with animals in nature. And you would be amazed at the ease at which conversations come out, especially with our
Yes.
young folks, in that natural
Yes.
setting, sitting around a fire, versus
Yeah.
sitting in a cold clinical office with someone with a clipboard talking about their feelings.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Outside, unconventionally,
Right.
even when I have life, I love to canoe. So I live by the
Oh,
lake
that's
and I
great.
love to canoe. So
Mhm.
my clients, they'll say that we're going canoeing today and we'll talk,
Yeah.
just rowing, just like, and it's
So
like the best thing.
right.
It's
I
the best thing.
the
It's the
the
best thing.
practice I created is called Wild Ohio Therapy Farm. It can be found on
Love it.
Facebook. And that's what I
Okay.
do. And that's how I find peace. It's how I
Love
find
it.
healing, and it's how I find calm.
Yes.
And that's what I
Yes.
try to teach the patients who come here.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you already gave us your information, information. I have to have you back because I want to do something in 2024 called Unchurched. You're coming back
Love it.
because
Love it.
you're the one. Like I was telling my friend before we got on, I was like, I think he's the one. I want to do this thing called Unchurched. She goes,
Right.
Unchurched. Oh, Edna, you're gonna turn heads. I said, that's right. Hey, we
That's
come
okay.
here,
That's
we
okay.
come up, we come here to break up what they are, the fallow ground, as it were. We
That's
come here
right.
to do that. That's what we're here for.
Mhm.
So if we connect that way, yeah.
Sure.
But audience, I know that I'm loving Daniel already. Dan, you can call him Dan, but I love him. I love what you do. I'm
Thank you.
excited to see, you know, everyone like just break free from religion and be who
Sure.
they are. And I know that you're the catalyst to that.
Well,
Is
thank you
there
so much
anything that you could
for,
tell our audience? Last words.
yeah.
Just tell our audience last words. Last words.
Yeah, I think be kind to yourself and kind to others. And anything that tells you differently, question it.
Yes. So
Be kind to
we will have Dan back on again. But thank you for this information. We know to look you up. Your website. You gave the website. Give it
yourself.
again. Give
www.wildohiotherapyfarm.com.
That's beautiful. So get yourself there or even find him virtually because I know he may do virtual
Sure.
sessions as well. But we thank you. I know the audience is probably going to have a whole lot of questions, and I got your email, so I'll send them straight to you.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much for
Bye-bye.
being here. And this has been really an enlightening session. And for me, I know for me, my audience is going to love it. But thank you
Wonderful.
so much. And we will be in touch.
That sounds
Bye
great.
for now.
Thanks, Edna.